On December 29th, 2020, I released a video telling you about which young stars were mimicking NBA legends' playstyle. In making that video, I realized something that's heavily underlooked in the NBA community. Chris Paul, the point guard, may never be replicated again. Chris Paul, with no MVP, no championship, and only a few serious playoff runs, has secured himself as a top 5 point guard of all time and has been dubbed the point guard simply because he embodies the essence of a point guard. Many of the all-time greats have faults in their games, generally because they're in systems that didn't require them to fulfill certain roles. So Michael Jordan didn't play make, LeBron couldn't shoot free throws, and Bill Russell couldn't score. Yet Chris Paul on the court was damn near perfect, embracing the role of a true point guard and taking it a step further to adjust for what the situation needed, like he did in Houston. Today, I'm going to show you how good Chris Paul is and show you why no young star is comparable to him in his basketball dexterity. Many players have been compared to Chris Paul, most noticeably Darius Garland, Sharife Cooper, Tyrese Halliburton, and Trae Young, for just cause. Barring Tyrese, these are smaller players who excel at playmaking. A base comparison to Chris Paul is warranted. But this disrespectfully minimizes Paul's game, as when you look at Chris Paul and what he's done in the entirety of his career, or even what he did in the same amount of time as his players, they don't match up. Let's start with the worst cases, Trae Young and Sharife Cooper. Sharife Cooper and Trae Young are mainly compared to him based on being noticeably small players whose playstyles are predicated on quickness, shiftiness, etc. etc. It may seem strange to include Sharife Cooper, someone who's only played 13 NBA games and averaged 3 minutes in those games, but I'm including him because during his comeuppance, basketball media heavily pushed the Chris Paul narrative, so I want to get him out of the way quickly. Cooper probably had the most potential to be like CP3, but he was missing a core aspect of his game. In running an offense as a point guard is supposed to, he has always included some form of scoring prowess. As we move through the eras, players like Russell Westbrook and Ben Simmons are showing us just how vital scoring is to running an efficient offense. Sharife Cooper, while he had a good highlight reel, wasn't effective enough to run an offense. You can't run an offense when you're shooting under 40% from the field, and while he could have developed on a young team like the Rockets or the Hawks who he played for, developing a shot is a struggle most players rarely remedy. Look at DeMar DeRozan, Russell Westbrook, Ben Simmons, and being the focal point and the key to the offense isn't the best situation to develop a shot in. On the other side of the coin, Trae Young came in as a proficient scorer. From college to his first All-Star, he was known as a man who could put the ball in the basket. The method in which he did it though was what drew comparison to Paul. Both their small frames, paired with their elite ball handling, allows them to use angles in the pick and roll that most other players can't get to. They can get to a shot using shifty and unconventional dribbles, and on the surface, this may seem as an aspect that Trae Young has more impact. However, a deeper look shows that Chris Paul's impact from scoring outweighs Young's. You see, Chris Paul has always been efficient, but has never been a volume shooter. And when you understand roles and values in team systems, Chris Paul has always been valued as a playmaker rather than a scorer. In 2006, David West was the one who the offense ran through. Despite that, Chris Paul still averaged practically the same amount of points on 2 less attempts. In comparison, Trae came into a Hawks team that had no proficient scoring threat aside from him. Their next best scorer was Taurean Prince, so it gave him a role that allowed him to score more. When you directly compare the two, Trae only averaged 3 more points on more field goal attempts. If you do the maths, you would see Chris Paul's averages improving by nearly a third, putting him at 21.4 points. And though it may look bad as Trae jumped to 29.6 points the next season, he also did so on 7 more attempts and tripled the 3-point volume than Paul. If Chris Paul shot the same amount of threes on say the same relative percentage, he'd average 25.9 points. It's still less than Young's, but for the era he'd be considered elite. Even at his peak when Chris Paul was a 23-point scorer, he did so on 5 less attempts than Chris Paul. In fact, he did so on the second lowest attempts of Trae Young's career. This point isn't to say that Chris Paul is a better scorer than Young. As for as many hypotheticals and adjustments we can make, the fact is Trae Young is in a better position to score. However, given his adaptability and the opportunity to show it, Paul could have easily been a volume scorer, which can't be said for many NBA legends who played across eras. In Young's case, simply adding DeJounte Murray led to him struggling, so it's questionable to see if his abilities would work in other systems. And until they prove themselves, Trae Young and Sharife Cooper are out. Regardless of Young trying to exploit the rules and manipulate refs like Paul, the only young star whose IQ is comparable to Paul is the Cavaliers' lead guard, Darius Garland. Recently, more people have been comparing Garland to Paul, especially with the step he's taken next to Donovan Mitchell. He's learned to run a well-structured offense and make sure everybody gets their touches. He's even gone a step further than that and shown his basketball IQ and understanding of the game is gone further than most point guards, becoming an elite passer and playmaker. But was he ever better than Chris Paul? First, we should establish a difference between playmaking and passing. Passing refers to the intricacies of the throw, i.e. the accuracy of the pass, the positioning of the ball relative to where the player is, the degree of difficulty of the pass, and let's throw in a splash or flash. Playmaking denotes reading and reacting to defenses, as well as creating advantages for teams to score or set up another bucket. For example, Jason Williams is an excellent passer, LeBron James is an excellent playmaker. While the two are inherently linked, they are mutually exclusive. You can have one without the other. They are their own things. This time, we don't need to compare them relatively. We can simply compare a 34-year-old Chris Paul to the best version of Darius Garland. During the bubble year, Chris Paul, a player who had broken down over the course of his career, was able to lead a young OKC team to the playoffs. This was also at a time when his value was the lowest it's ever been, because his stint in Houston wasn't the best, especially because his reoccurring health issues were the reason Houston didn't win. But with him running the offense, the young stars around him flourished. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander almost doubled his point production while staying around the same efficiency, Lou Dort had a breakout rookie season as a defensive superstar, and Dennis Schroeder played arguably the best basketball of his career as a sixth man. And all this success stemmed from Chris Paul's play. We all saw the play of him forcing a delay of game, which won them that game, and he has many nifty tips and tricks like this. But his understanding of the game supersedes even that. His understanding of defensive positioning, player nature, and overall court awareness involves his teammates consistently. In the pick and roll, his usage of Steven Adams' large frame not only helped create touches for Adams, but was also used to create opportunities for driving and kicking, an aspect which Paul specializes in, as Paul shoots an astounding 85% from 0 to 3 feet, leading to more defenders being drawn in from him. Furthermore, his vision of scoring from the perimeter meant defenders couldn't sag off him, which then creates opportunities for SGA to create his own shots, as he likes to do so often. He was so in tune with the game that we've seen him call out plays for the defensive team. In Darius's case, he's one of the best playmakers in the league. At his tender age of 23, he's able to manipulate defenses and create plenty of opportunities for his teammates. His playmaking also heavily relies on driving kicks, as he's 6th in drives despite not being a volume scorer. Yet his lack of scoring potential doesn't hinder his effectiveness, as within 0 to 3 feet, he shoots 62%. He's not only limited to playmaking around the rim, he uses a variety of screen actions to create different looks as well. But the difference between him and Paul is their impact on their teams. It's undeniable that they're both key contributors to their team's success, but in comparison, despite their similar skill sets, Paul's impact as the offensive focal point raises the floor of the team. In 2020, his career was meant to die in OKC. The team had lost their greatest player ever and replaced him with a 34-year-old injury-prone NBA midget, as well as some young stars. The team was meant to be horrible, yet with Paul as their leader, they were the 5th seed in the harder West, and everybody flourished significantly beyond expectations. His IQ, his playmaking, and his understanding of the game created a situation where players with conflicting playstyles could work harmoniously. It may seem unfair to ask Darius Garland to be a floor raiser at 23, but until he does, he is out. Now onto the final candidate, Tyrese Haliburton. He's enough of a passer to lead the league in assists and enough of a scorer to average 21 on borderline 50-40-90, but the deciding factor isn't on the offensive end. Defensively, they're both good defenders. Tyrese at 6'5", 180 pounds is very slight for his frame, but it does him well. While Tyrese doesn't thrive on ball, he puts in effort. With his long frame, he gets good contests even if he seems out of the play, and can force bad passes by crowding the defender if he picks up. Where he thrives though is as an off-ball defender. Pairing his frame with his high IQ leads to an off-ball menace. Basically, he's good at making the right decisions. We can constantly see him coordinating defenses and being an engaged defender. Individually, he's in the lanes, picking passes and touching balls.
Hey yo, what the fuck?
As among guards, he's 16th in deflections because his hands and eyes are always active. You can always see him scouting and scanning the floor, which leads to easy picks for him. But in comparison to Chris Paul, he takes every aspect on defense. You see, Paul's athleticism and strength throughout his entire career has always aided him on ball. He's too quick and too strong to simply get blown by, which lends itself to Chris Paul's main calling card, picking pockets. He's a thief. He's 3rd all-time in steals, had multiple seasons averaging 2.5 steals, and has maintained this quality for 17 years. He perfectly times reach-ins on players 6'11" and down, making it almost impossible to score on him despite his petite stature. And this ties into his IQ. His understanding of positioning and timing is why he's so good at coordinating defenses. He's constantly making reads and adjusting his teammates to help his team. He actively raises the defensive floor for most teams and inspires defensive hustle in the players he plays with. So while Tyrese has offensively come close to Chris Paul, he doesn't match the well-roundedness displayed by Paul playing elite defense at 6 foot no less. So Tyrese is out. So 3 potential young stars, and none of them could truly capture the essence of Chris Paul. All these players have aspects of Chris Paul's games, flickers if you will, but they all miss a vital element that made Paul the all-time great that he is. So is there no one that can do it? No, I don't think there is, and I don't think there ever will be. While obviously I can't predict the future, I can look at trends, and the NBA is trending away from Chris Paul. The current state of the league endorses offense. This is why A, you've seen a recent trend of scoring outbreaks from random ass niggas, and B, all of the players on this list were around 21-8 minimum, which until recently was uncommon. From the start of this century, the amount of 20-point scorers has almost quadrupled, even the rare 30-point scorers. Prior to this season, the league had 3 at the most, yet this season, there are currently 6 players averaging 30 points and 5 of them are under 28. This means that players aren't impacting scoring as Paul was throughout his career, and are lacking a vital aspect as to what made CP3 an all-time legend. He impacted the game in every single aspect. Every single aspect. He was a great defender, a great playmaker, a great scorer, and a great leader. Especially that last one. CP3 at age 20 was coaching players like David West, the guy who got Draymond Green to shut up. And I think this leadership quality is dwindling heavily, especially at the guard spot. The social media influencer lifestyle seems to have affected a lot of young stars, where it seems like they have other priorities on top of basketball, like being in commercials, having multiple women, or fucking being on the block. An immediate comparison may be Dennis Rodman. He loved to party, but he balanced his eccentric lifestyle and hustled like a dog every single game, doing the things no one wanted to do. He never let his off-court work get in the way of his job, regardless of how much he partied. Yet in the modern era, players get bumped and would rather complain to the refs than get back on defense. The essence and legacy of Chris Paul came not only from his quality of play, but from the respect he garnered from his peers. I mean, even Kobe wanted to play with him. And fair enough, Tyrese and Darius don't seem to be on this influencer path, but Trae Young is continuously disrespected for how much he complains to the refs. And he literally just got his coach fired. The NBA is trending away from the Chris Paul archetype, and seems to be moving towards bigger ball handlers, i.e. Ben Simmons, Nikola Jokic, and Victor Wembanyama. So we as the fans should truly be grateful that we got to experience Chris Paul. It's like how the NBA didn't value LeBron and didn't give him all the accolades he deserves. But if you want to see more about that topic, click this video here. If you like the video, like the video. If you don't subscribe if you want, and I'm done. Okay, bye.